Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Kevin said, check out the story about Amazon. It's in the news, and it's more a vision of our dystopian future. From TheVerge.com, Jess Weatherbed wrote it. Amazon hopes to replace 600,000 U.S. workers with robots, according to leaked documents. Amazon is reportedly leaning into automation plans to allow the company to avoid hiring more than 500,000 U.S. workers. Citing interviews and internal strategy documents, the New York Times reports that Amazon is hoping its robots can replace more than 600,000 jobs that would otherwise be filled by humans by 2033, despite estimating it'll sell twice as many products then as it's doing right now. So twice the output, but minus 600,000 people. Documents reportedly show that Amazon's robotics team is working towards automating 75% of the company's entire output and expects to ditch 160,000 U.S. roles that would otherwise be needed by 2027. This would save about 30 cents on every item that Amazon warehouses and delivers to customers, with automation efforts expected to save the company $12.6 billion from 2025 to 2027. Amazon has considered steps, again according to reports, to improve its image as a good corporate citizen in preparation for the anticipated backlash around job losses. Reporting that the company considered participating in community projects and avoiding terms like automation and AI, according to the story in the New York Times. More vague terms like advanced technology were explored instead, in using the term cobot for robots that work alongside humans. See, co implies that we're partners. This is my robot partner. In a statement to The Verge, Amazon spokesperson said the leaked documents reflect the perspective of just one team and do not represent the company's overall hiring strategy now or moving forward. And I suppose they probably should have said, can we speak to a robot about that? Maybe the people aren't telling the truth anymore. Leaked documents often paint an incomplete and misleading picture of our plans. And that's the case here. In our written narrative culture, thousands of documents circulate throughout the company at any given time, each with a varying degree of accuracy and timeliness, says the spokesperson from Amazon. We are actively hiring at operations facilities across the country and recently announced plans to fill another 250,000 jobs for the holiday season. I actually know somebody who works at an Amazon warehouse where the Pontiac Silverdome used to be. Amazon told the New York Times that its executives are not being instructed to avoid using certain terms when referring to robotics, and that community involvement is unrelated to the company's automation plans. Nobody else has the same incentive as Amazon to find the way to automate. Once they work out how to do this profitably, it will spread to others. That's a Nobel Prize economic winner speaking, adding that if Amazon achieves its automation goal, one of the biggest employers in the United States will become a net job destroyer, not a net job creator. One thing you got to remember, though, is it's not Amazon's job to create jobs. Amazon is a corporation trying to make a profit. So you shouldn't expect them to create jobs just for the sake of creating jobs. I'm reminded of a little story that people in Michigan will remember. And if you saw the movie Roger and Me, you might remember this also. But there was a time when the city of Flint, Michigan was trying to figure out what they could possibly do to perhaps bring in tourists. It's so hard to say that sentence without laughing. And they decided to build, for lack of a better phrase, an indoor amusement park called Auto World. And it was this big dome-like structure. And then inside of it was a bunch of stuff that they thought people would want to come and see. And they called it Auto World because there's a huge presence of auto manufacturing, at least there was in Flint. There still is the presence. It's just not as huge as it used to be in terms of its percentage of the world market or the American market. And so Auto World was built at a time when the auto companies here were moving out, heading to other places. So the actual number of jobs in Flint was dramatically dropping. And one of the reasons the jobs numbers were dropping is that not only were the plants moving elsewhere, but they were introducing automation. And so in Auto World, one of the displays was a robotic thing that was, I guess it was kind of set to music. And it was talking about, basically our friends, the robots on the assembly line. And some people noticed there was an irony there, that you go into this place called Auto World, and it's celebrating the automobile. And it's celebrating it with a robot who was taking away jobs. Now, again, it's not the car company's job to create jobs. I'm not saying that. Some people simply thought it was ironic that Auto World was built because the car industry was kind of lessening in the area. And one of the things that they were celebrating inside was a robot that presumably took away at least one person's job, maybe more. So I understand it's a stretch, but again, it's not Amazon's job to create jobs, nor is it General Motors or anybody else's. However, this is interesting because Amazon, in many respects, it's hard to imagine when they started, but I remember hearing ads on the radio for Amazon. And this is in the early days of the internet. And there were ads on the radio talking about Amazon. And Amazon started out primarily selling books. And it was actually a very, very interesting business model because if you look at a book, just pick a book at random. Let's see. I don't know what this book is. I just reached down and grabbed it. And here we go. Our Band Could Be Your Life by Michael Azerrad. Great book. Fabulous book if you're into independent record labels and music in that scene from a couple decades ago. Wonderful, wonderful book. Our Band Could Be Your Life, okay? So here's the thing. Let's suppose that you woke up this morning and said, hey, I could use another book. I feel like reading a book. And you go, Steve, I'm really into smaller bands, independent labels, that kind of thing. Think of the time frame of the Replacements and Black Flag and so on. Can you recommend a book? And I'd say, yes. Our Band Could Be Your Life by Michael Azerrad. And it's a thick book, but it's got some fabulous stories in there. And you'd say, oh, where'd you get it? And let's say that I named a bookstore you've never heard of before. Grandpa's Barn, Copper Harbor, okay? I'm simply mentioning the furthest bookstore I can think of from where I'm sitting right now. Grandpa's Barn, Copper Harbor, Michigan. Let's suppose I bought this book there. I didn't, but let's suppose I did. And you go, oh, I haven't got time to drive up to Copper Harbor to buy a book. You know what I'll do? I'll buy it online. Because if you go to Amazon or any other place that sells books, you don't need to actually get the book and go, wait a second, how is this book constructed? How are the pages look? Are all the pages there? Is this the same book Steve was talking about? I mean, it does say Our Band Could Be Your Life by Michael Azerrad, but interestingly, books are one of those products that you don't need to test. You don't need to check. You don't need to pick it up and smell it like you might with a piece of fruit or vegetables at a store. You don't need to go through and make sure all the pages are there. A book is a book. So if it's this book by this author, doesn't matter where you get it from. And I remember hearing the ads on the radio for Amazon, and Amazon was at the time simply touting how many books they had available. And it was, we pretty much have every single book you could ever want to get your hands on. Now, at that time, there was Barnes & Noble and Borders. And those two brick and mortar bookstores did get a lot of criticism for how they responded to Amazon. But at that moment in time, I remember hearing the ads on the radio for Amazon. Amazon made it to where you could go, oh, you're sitting at your desk and you think of a book. That's right, Steve mentioned that book. All you got to do is go to their website, click, boom, and it shows up on your front porch the next day. And there are products they've got on their website that if you click on it early enough in the day, it'll be on your front porch the same day. They can probably, if you were sitting in an office, get it on your front porch before you got home. And it saves you the trip to Borders or Barnes & Noble. And it'll really save you a trip to Borders now because Borders is gone. And, but the point is that they recognized that very, very early on with books and CDs and DVDs and things of that nature. They gradually branched out into everything else, literally everything or anything else that you could ever want to buy. And this isn't an ad for Amazon. I'm just pointing out that they started with a very interesting business model, and then it just grew from there. And it's to the point now where you want to buy something, chances are Amazon's got it. So, however, if you're working at Amazon, like I said, I've got a friend who's working there right now, there's a good chance that your job could be eliminated in the future by one of them robots. And that's just the writing on the wall. So, Kevin, thanks for sending that from TheVerge.com, and Jess Weatherbed wrote it. Amazon hopes to replace 600,000 U.S. workers with robots, according to leaked documents. Questions or comments? Put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Tough times never last, but tough people do.